When it was the 4th night, her sister said to her, "Please finish us this tale, and thou be not sleepy." So she resumed, "It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when the fisherman said to the Ifrit, 'I will never in no wise believe thee until I see thee inside it with mine own eyes,' the evil spirit on the instant shook and became a vapor, which condensed, and entered the jar little and little, till all was well inside, when lo! the fisherman in hot haste took the leaden cap of the seal, and stoppered therewith the mouth of the jar, called out to the Ifrit, saying, 'Ask me by way of boon what death thou wilt die. By Allah, I will throw thee into the sea before us, and here will I build me a lodge, and whoso cometh hither I will warn him against fishing, and will say, In these waters abideth an Ifrit, who giveth as a last favour a choice of deaths and fashion of slaughter to the man who saveth him.' Now when the Ifrit heard this from the fisherman, and saw himself in limbo, he was minded to escape, but this was prevented by Solomon's seal, so he knew that the fisherman had cozened and outwitted him, and he waxed lowly and submissive, and began humbly to say, 'I did but jest with thee.' But the other answered, 'Thou liest, O vilest of the Ifrits, and meanest and filthiest.' And he set off with the bottle for the seaside, the Ifrit calling out, 'Nay, nay,' and he calling out, 'Aye, aye.' Thereupon the evil spirit softened his voice and smoothed his speech, and abased himself, saying, 'What wouldest thou do with me, O fisherman?' 'I will throw thee back into the sea,' he answered, 'where thou hast been housed and home for 1,800 years, and now I will leave thee therein till judgment day. Did I not say to thee, Spare me, and Allah shall spare thee, and slay me not, lest Allah slay thee? Yet thou spurnedst my supplication, and hadst no intention save to deal ungraciously by me. And Allah hath now thrown thee into my hands, and I am cunninger than thou.' Quoth the Ifrit, 'Open for me, and I may bring thee weal.' Quoth the fisherman, 'Thou liest, thou accursed. My case with thee is that of the wazir of King Yunan with the sage Duban.' 'And who was the wazir of King Yunan, and who was the sage Duban? And what was the story about them?' quoth the Ifrit. Whereupon the fisherman began to tell the tale of the wazir and the sage Duban. 'Know, O thou Ifrit, that in days of yore, and in ages long gone before, a king called Yunan reigned over the city of Fars of the land of the Rome. He was a powerful ruler and a wealthy, who had armies and guards and allies of all nations of men, but his body was afflicted with a leprosy which leeches and men of science fail to heal. He drank potions, and he swallowed powders, and he used unguents, but naught did him good, and none among the host of physicians availed to procure him a cure. At last there came to his city a mighty healer of men, and one well stricken in years, the sage Dubain hight. This man was a reader of books, Greek, Persian, Roman, Arabian, and Syrian, and he was skilled in astronomy and in leechcraft, theoric as well as the practic. He was experienced in all that healeth and that hurteth the body, conversant with the virtues of every plant, grass, and herb, and their benefit and bane, and he understood philosophy, and had compassed the whole range of medical science and other branches of the knowledge tree. Now this physician passed but few days in the city ere he heard of the king's malady and all his bodily sufferings through the leprosy with which Allah had smitten him, and how all the doctors and wise men had failed to heal him. Upon this he sat up through the night in deep thought, and when broke the dawn and appeared the morn, and light was again born, and the sun greeted the good, whose beauties the world adorn, he donned his handsomest dress, and going in to King Yunan, he kissed the ground before him. Then he prayed for the endurance of his honour and prosperity in fairest language, and made himself known, saying, O king, tidings have reached me of what befell thee through that which is in my person, and how the host of physicians have proved themselves unavailing to abate it. And lo, I can cure thee, O king, and yet will I not make thee drink of draught or anoint thee with ointment. Now when King Yunan heard his words, he said in huge surprise, How wilt thou do this? By Allah, if thou make me whole, I will enrich thee, even to thy son's son, and I will give thee sumptuous gifts, and whatso thou wishest shall be thine, and thou shalt be to me a cup-companion and a friend. The king then robed him with a dress of honour, and entreated him graciously, and asked him, Canst thou indeed cure me of this complaint without drug and unguent? And he answered, Yes, I will heal thee without the pains and penalties of medicine. The king marvelled with exceeding marvel, and said, O physician, when shall be this whereof thou speakest, and in how many days shall it take place? Haste thee, O my son, he replied. I hear and I obey. The cure shall begin tomorrow. So saying, he went forth from the presence, and hired himself a house in the city for the better storage of his books and scrolls, his medicines, and his aromatic roots. Then he set to work at choosing the fittest drugs and simples, and he fashioned a bat hollow within and furnished with a handle without, for which he made a ball, the two being prepared with consummate art. On the next day, when both were ready for use, and wanted nothing more, he went up to the king, and, kissing the ground between his hands, bade him ride forth on the parade ground there to play at Paul and Mall. He was accompanied by his suite, emirs and chamberlains, wazirs and lords of the realm, and, ere he was seated, the sage Douban came up to him, and handing him the bat, said, "Take this Mall and grip it, as I do so, and now push for the plain, and leaning well over thy horse, drive the ball with all thy might until thy palm be moist, and thy body perspire. Then the medicine will penetrate through thy palm, and will permeate thy person. When thou hast done with playing, and thou feelest the effects of the medicine, return to thy palace, and make the ghusl ablution in the hammam bath, and lay thee down to sleep. So shalt thou become whole. And now peace be with thee." Thereupon King Yunan took the bat from the sage and grasped it firmly. Then, mounting steed, he drove the ball before him and galloped after it till he reached it, when he struck it with all his might, his palm gripping the bat handle the while, and he ceased not mauling the ball till his hand waxed moist, and his skin, perspiring, imbibed the medicine from the wood. Then the sage Douban knew that the drugs had penetrated his person, and bade him return to the palace and enter the hammam without stay or delay. So King Yunan forthright returned and ordered them to clear for him the bath. They did so, the carpet spreaders making all haste, and the slaves all hurrying got ready a change of raiment for the king. He entered the bath and made the total ablution long and thoroughly, then donned his clothes within the hammam, and rode therefrom to his palace, where he lay him down and slept. Such was the case with King Yunan, but as regards the sage Douban, he returned home and slept as usual, and when morning dawned he repaired to the palace and craved audience. The king ordered him to be admitted. Then, having kissed the ground between his hands, in allusion to the king, he recited these couplets with solemn intonation. "Happy is eloquence when thou art named her sire, but more Shuena's other man the title claimed. O Lord of fairest presence, whose illuming rays clear off the fogs of doubt, eye-veiling deeds high-famed, ne'er stretch thy face to shine like dawn and rise of morn, and never show time's face with heat of ire inflamed. Thy grace hath favored us with gifts that worked such wise, as rain clouds raining on the hills by wolds enframed. Freely thou lavishest thy wealth to rise on high, till won from time the heights whereat thy grandeur aimed." Now when the sage ceased reciting, the king rose quickly to his feet and fell on his neck. Then, seating him by his side, he bade dress him in his sumptuous dress. For it had so happened that when the king left the hammam, he looked on his body and saw no trace of leprosy. The skin was all clean as virgin silver. He joyed thereat with exceeding joy, his breast broadened with delight, and he felt thoroughly happy. Presently, when it was full day, he entered his audience hall, and sat upon the throne of his kingship, whereupon his chamberlains and grandees flocked to the presence, and with them the sage Douban. Seeing the leech, the king rose to him in honor, and seated him by his side. Then the food trays furnished for the daintiest viands were brought, and the physician ate with the king. Nor did he cease accompanying him all that day. Moreover, at nightfall he gave the physician Douban 2,000 gold pieces, besides the usual dress of honor, and other gifts galore, and sent him home on his own steed. After the sage had fared forth, King Yunan again expressed his amazement at the leech's art, saying, "This man medicined my body from without, nor anointed me with aught of ointments. By Allah, surely this is none other than consummate skill. I am bound to honor such a man with rewards and distinction, and take him to my companion and my friend during the remainder of my days." So King Yunan passed the night in joy and gladness, for that his body had been made whole, and had thrown off so pernicious a malady. On the morrow the king went forth from his seraglio and sat upon his throne, and the lords of his state stood about him, and the emirs and wazirs sat as was their wont on his right hand and on his left. Then he asked for the sage Douban, who came in and kissed the ground before him, when the king rose to greet him, and seating him by his side ate with him and wished him long life. Moreover, he robed him and gave him gifts, and ceased not conversing with him until night approached. Then the king ordered him, by way of salary, 5 dresses of honor, and 1,000 dinars. The physician returned to his own house full of gratitude to the king. Now when next morning dawned, the king repaired to his audience hall, and his lords and nobles surrounded him, and his chamberlains and his ministers, as the white encloseth the black of the eye. Now the king had a wazir among his wazirs, unsightly to look upon, an ill-omened spectacle, sordid, ungenerous, full of envy and evil will. When this minister saw the king place the physician near him and give him all these gifts, he jealoused him and planned to do him a harm, as in the saying, on such subject, envy lurks in every body, and the saying, oppression hideth in every heart, power revealeth it, and weakness concealeth it. Then the minister came before the king, and kissing the ground between his hands, said, O king of the age and of all time, thou in whose benefits I have grown to manhood, I have weighty advice to offer thee, and if I withhold it I were a son of adultery, and no true-born man, wherefore thou order me to disclose it I will so do forthwith. Quoth the king, and he was troubled at the words of the minister, And what is this counsel of thine? Quoth he, O glorious monarch, the wise of old have said, Whoso regardeth not the end, hath not fortune to friend, and indeed I have lately seen the king on far other than the right way, for he lavisheth largesse on his enemy, on one whose object is the decline and fall of his kingship. To this man he hath shown favour, honouring him with over-honour, and making of him an intimate. Wherefore I fear for the king's life. The king, who was much troubled and changed colour, asked, Whom dost thou suspect, and in whom doest thou hint? And the minister answered, O king, and thou be asleep, wake up. I point to the physician Duban. Rejoined the king, Fie upon thee! This is a true friend who is favoured by me above all men, because he cured me with something which I held in my hand. And he healed my leprosy, which had baffled all physicians. Indeed, he is one whose like may not be found in these days. No, not in the whole world from furthest east to utmost west. And it is of such a man thou sayest such hard sayings. Now from this day forward I allot him a settled solde in allowances, every month 1,000 gold pieces, and were I to share with him my realm, 'twere but a little matter. Perforce I must suspect that thou speakest on this wise from mere envy and jealousy, as they relate of the king Sindibad. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day, and ceased saying her permitted say. Then quoth Dunyazad, O my sister, how pleasant is thy tale, and how tasteful, how sweet, and how grateful. She replied, And where is this compared with what I could tell thee on the coming night if the king deigns spare my life? Then said the king in himself, By Allah, I will not slay her until I hear the rest of her tale, for truly it is wondrous. So they rested that night in mutual embrace until the dawn. Then the king went forth to his hall of rule, and the wazir and the troops came in, and the audience chamber was thronged, and the king gave orders, and judged, and appointed, and deposed, and bade, and forbade during the rest of that day till the court broke up, and King Shahryar returned to his palace.